Okay, I'm going to unmute myself and let's go ahead and get started now. Right. It is 4 o'clock London time on Thursday, April 18, 2019, and my name is Eric Wolf, and I am the Executive Director of the World Food Travel Association. And I am delighted today to start our next session, which is um, what food and drink focused destinations should be doing differently with social media. And speaking today is Shonette Laffey. I met Shonette last year. I was in Bristol and doing some work with their tourism office there. And Jeanette said, let's go out to dinner. So we did. And I had an amazing meal. I was blown away by the quality of the ingredients. It was all locally sourced. The chef, I think he used to work with at a Michelin restaurant or something, but he was at this restaurant now. And the food was just out of this world. And it was fantastic. Anyway, Jeanette is just a fun person to be around. But the thing is, besides being so much fun, she knows her stuff. She is really prolific on social media. She gets what Bristol as a city needs to be doing, and some of the innovative things that go into destination marketing as well. So Shanette, are you there? Would you like to unmute yourself and turn your video on?
Right, yes, I have unmuted myself and I will now share my video as well.
Okay. And but anyway, I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say, and I'm sure a lot of our destination partners are as well. And just a reminder that even though there aren't that many people in the room right now, there will be a lot of people listening to the recording later. So,
Perfect.
all right, take it away, Shanette.
Okay. Okay, and I will just, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let me just share this. All good?
It's coming. There we go. We're good, Jeanette.
Right, perfect. Okay, is this going to let me present? Okay, right, great. So thank you for a really wonderful introduction, Eric. That was really kind of you. So as Eric described, I'll be talking about my work with Visit Bristol. I'll be starting off with just a bit of an intro into the history of Visit Bristol and what we were doing before versus what we're doing now, how we started with content, what we've been doing to make the most of each of our channels, how we've been working with influencers, some of the partner marketing we've been doing with local organisations and members, and ending on hopefully a few handy resources for you. So first up, Eric did mention that I'm incredibly enthusiastic about the Bristol food scene. I've been working for Visit Bristol for just over 2.5 years now.
Ci sono. Ho visto la tua mail e quindi stavo un attimo appunto a seconda anche di quello che mi hai mandato.
Sorry, I just had a brief interruption there. I've been working for Visit Bristol for about 2.5 years now as their digital marketing manager. So I oversee content, newsletters, social media, and really anything creative on the website. This is a lovely look at our homepage this week. And in my spare time, I also run a social media group called the Rules of Engagement in Bristol. And I also just am very prolific, as Eric said, on Twitter and Instagram, and I wrote a food blog about Bristol as well. So starting off with Visit Bristol. Historically, I'm sure many of you who do work for tourism organisations will know that in the past, we've very much focused on the traditional aspects of a destination. So that's the historic buildings, the cathedrals, the parks, the gardens, the kind of more scenic side of it, and the family side, hotels, everything like that. But in the last couple of years, we'd started to notice that as much as we as residents and local people were proud of our food scene, it wasn't something that we'd really focused on marketing massively to an international audience. And we decided that because so many visitors were beginning to tweet and to blog and to really make a point of coming to Bristol purely for the food, that maybe it was time to focus more on that ourselves. One way we've been doing that, as well as just kind of creating blogs and putting more social posts out, is also focusing on the experiences aspect. That's something new for this year, and that's something that lends itself very well to food and drink. So doing cocktail masterclasses, wine tasting, visiting breweries, everything like that. So rather than just us telling you to go to a nice restaurant, which is excellent fun anyway. But to also meet the local producers, meet the chefs, have a cookery lesson, and really get involved with everything that's going on here. And I think Bristol probably does that better than anywhere else in the UK. We've got some amazing breweries, some really passionate local suppliers, and I think the more we push that, the better. So what we've decided with our food and drink strategy and social media really was that to really promote Bristol as a food and drinks destination to the world, the best thing was to start with the content that we're going to be pushing out over social media. And one of those ways was to look at the way that the website looks to people, because of course, if you're talking about your website, your destination on social media, you don't want to create this really beautiful experience, put out pictures on Facebook and Instagram, and then they arrive on your website and the pictures are low res, they're not very good, the text isn't very good, that they don't land where they expect to. So we looked at, especially our food and drink pages, making them far more visual for people. So this was what our food and drink pages used to look like. And now this is the sort of look we're going for across the website. So much bigger images. We've got a lot more flexibility in what we can feature. So rather than just having 2 or 4 images, we can put on as many as we like. We can talk about blogs, we can talk about different pages, so restaurants or pubs and bars, or we can talk about individual organizations like you can see down the bottom of the page. And that's really good because not only does it allow us to kind of give a really good mix of what Bristol can offer, but it also gives us a chance to shout about individual businesses who are either members of Visit Bristol or who we think are kind of leading the way in the city. Another type of content we've started on in the last couple of years that has done really, really well is guides by local people. So we've got an excellent team and who can write excellent blogs about the city anyway, but I do think that people are immediately suspicious of tourist boards when everything is written only by yourself, because they might just presume that you only have one opinion or that you're trying to please certain people. Whereas if you have a really good mixture of local people feeding into your website, it makes everything seem more authentic. It gives them a more kind of diverse perspective on the city. So you can see here we've got local area guides. We've got a feature called Food Friday, where every Friday a local person will talk about their favourite places to eat and drink in Bristol, and that does really well. It means we can talk about even more places in the city than we would never be able to speak about normally, because just trying to get through them all is a bit of a mission. We've also really paid a lot more attention into doing best of guides. So before we would just do maybe the occasional guide of saying, here's what's on this month in Bristol, or here are some places to go, if you're going to this attraction, what you can kind of eat nearby or something. But we've paid a lot more attention to doing those best burger joints, best vegan, and putting ourselves as that authority in the city, that we really know what we're talking about. We know the best places. So not only do we have the voices of local people, but we are the go-to website to tell you everything you need to know about the city. We've also spent a lot of time improving our member listings. So Destination Bristol is a membership organisation where we have local companies who pay a membership fee to feature on the website. And again, we've put imagery at the forefront of that. We've tried to make sure that they are sending us the best pictures of their food, a good mixture of different food and drink, their interiors, telling us all about different things they can offer. So not just we're this kind of restaurant who does this sort of menu, but to send us special offers, and if they're exclusive, all the better, to send us events, to send us seasonal information, so that we can always make sure that these listings are completely up to date and match what's on their website and are as good and compelling as possible, so that when you read them, that it makes you want to visit. So that's the content side that's on the website. And now we'll move on to what we've been doing with our social media channels to make sure that they're working effectively for promoting Bristol as well. So first up, I'm sure this is something that you all do anyway, but it's always worth kind of pointing out that one of the easiest ways to get people to really interact with you on social media, because sometimes you can get so stuck in the rut of just saying, you know, oh, you should go here and this thing's great and here's our blog about this, but you sometimes need to kind of get that conversation going and also get that really handy feedback from, you know, your followers across the world and your local people as well. So saying something like, where's your favorite pub in Bristol? You know, a local will have a very different perspective probably to someone who visited here one weekend during summer, or someone who visited a family member and got a kind of brief tour. And it's always been useful for us to not only get that kind of list of comments underneath, which we could then create a blog of, saying, you know, here is what everyone said was their favorite pub. But again, it gives a chance for us to promote other places in the city that we haven't already. And it just shows that we are interested in hearing other people's opinions, not just promoting our own. And the other post I put under there about kind of engaging and interacting with your audience is we also try to share content from other local either magazines or blogs, other people who are, you know, promoting Bristol as a destination. So this article here about the Pug and Dachshund Cafe was by a local news kind of website called Bristol 24/7. And rather than us go to the trouble of writing an article or doing our own spin on it, it was just much better to share theirs and put a little pun intro to it. And it did really well. You can see nearly 300 comments. Lots of people enjoyed it. It was good for us to then say that we could, you know, help out another local company, but, you know, it just did really well for us as well. So why wouldn't you? Another thing that's worked really well for us in the last year or so is doing a lot more content on Instagram stories. So we have an Instagram takeover on Visit Bristol's Instagram account probably every weekend. We definitely do now until the end of July. We've got them all booked in. And it's really good that up until maybe a year ago, we had to approach people, ask if they wanted to take part, whereas now we have a long list of people who come to us and ask if they can do it. And that could be anything from local photographers, local residents, people who work at a local business. And really, all we want is just to be able to show as many different sides of the city as possible. But we've also been making more of a point that rather than just going for people who take pretty photos, which is really excellent, that's always good fun to have, but also going for people who really know their stuff on a particular subject. So especially in food and drink, we've been reaching out to more local food bloggers or visiting food journalists and food bloggers and ask if they want to do a takeover. So this first picture was from Plant-Based Bristol, who has an entirely vegan Instagram account, and his takeover was brilliant, recommended lots of places. We've also had kind of other local food Instagram people who've just shown us so many other areas of the city in their own style that we could never have got round to doing. Another way that we have kind of made more of our presence on social media is, I think people get so hung up sometimes with hashtags, which are very useful, particularly on Instagram. But really, we found that tagging and kind of sharing is far more effective because not only does it kind of make people more aware that you are, you know, you're promoting them, but it gives our readers and our followers an easy way to then kind of click on that, find out more about the person, follow them as well. And it's a nice mutually beneficial situation then. But it just, I think also it does tend to make that content more shareable than if you just try and keep the traffic to yourself all the time. And it just looks a bit more generous, in the same way that I said about sharing that news article, tagging people. So even if you don't put it in the main comment, like I on this one, you can see I've put it in the comment underneath. I've mentioned who was included in that guide, and that's a nice bonus. Other companies can then choose if they want to share that blog. They can share the Facebook post. We also see that more often than not, they then share it on Twitter and in their newsletters. So don't ever presume that everyone knows that you're doing a blog that mentions them, or that even if someone was interviewed for something on your website, I would always try and tag them in wherever possible. And also just send them an email if you've got it, just to say, oh, by the way, we mentioned you in this guide. And it just promotes that goodwill, it encourages sharing, and kind of good all round. I touched on hashtags. Like I say, still massively useful to us. We've got our own hashtag, hashtag Visit Bristol, which we use every day to share a picture from that hashtag. We also check a lot of other Bristol hashtags throughout the week just to see what's going on. And that can be really good for finding people for Instagram takeovers, or sometimes we might do a certain blog on a subject. If we see that maybe a lot of people are posting pictures of a certain place or of an event, that's a good guide for us to know, well, people are interested in this. Maybe we should promote this more, or maybe we should get this person involved with the website more. But if nothing else, Instagram have made it so easy for you to share posts on a hashtag in your own Instagram stories. So if you don't want to clog up your Instagram feed, you can just share them straight into your stories. And again, excellent for goodwill and showing you're part of that community, and that you're not just wanting to share your own content, you want to talk about everybody. So like I said, we tend to monitor a few different hashtags. So we have our own one, which tends to be a lot more about architecture and events and scenery, but we monitor the Bristol food one, which I recommend you look at because it is absolutely gorgeous any day of the week. And there's a lot of burgers on it, which is why we knew we had to do a burger guide, because people were going crazy for burgers in Bristol. And there are usually a lot of pizzas, roast dinners. So again, it makes us know that we should be focusing on that sort of content. It's what people want to see, it's what people like. And once you see the kind of pictures that are done well, it might help you decide who you want to work with, maybe on a guide, or do some other posts for you. As well as the key channels of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, which are definitely our key channels and that we dedicate the most time to, we have looked into other channels, and we spend a little bit of time on Pinterest. We're building out more and more boards, and our Bristol food board is looking good as well, so I recommend you give us a follow. We're also doing more content on TripAdvisor. So we have posted a few blogs on there for people to view. We've also created a few trips. So we've got this vegan tour of Bristol. We've got a few street art. We've got some family guides on there. And so it's just about making ourselves as visible as possible in other areas of the internet, and in different formats, because some people prefer blogs, some people prefer videos. You can see our food channel on YouTube up there as well. And it's just making that content kind of work as best it can. So if we've done, a food markets video, we've also done a blog, which we've embedded the video in so that it can get seen in two different places. We might share then that blog on our Pinterest page, put a pin up and say, oh, watch this video. So you're making the most of something, because videos take a long time, blogs take a long time to do. You may as well promote them in as many ways as you can, but also recognize that you don't have to be everywhere. Think what works best for your audience and where they are. So in the examples of Pinterest, TripAdvisor, and YouTube, we knew those were huge channels that we should have a presence on. Flipboard, we are beginning to see a lot more content and a lot more traffic coming from, so we're starting to look into that as well. TikTok is something that a lot of people have been talking about, but I think unless we knew exactly how we wanted to use it, we're only just getting to a point now that we're happy with our Instagram stories. I would much rather dedicate the time elsewhere, but it's always worth thinking about these things and what will work best for who you're trying to reach. So next up was influencer marketing, and I'm not sure how much experience all of you have with this, but we've found this is probably one of the biggest changes we've made, and it's made such a huge difference to our food and drink coverage, our kind of visitors who are coming in knowing far more about the food offering in Bristol, and our reputation has massively grown over the last couple of years due to bloggers and Instagrammers kind of just talking about everything that's going on in the city. So we've had a lot of people just organically visiting the city and tweeting about it, putting up Instagram posts and doing blogs. But we have also organised quite a few trips and campaigns around our kind of summer and Christmas offering. And in the last 2 years, we've made food a very big part of both of those trips. So you can see this top picture here is from Natasha the Fronglaze, who is a local lady who blogs in both English and French. and she's quite new to the city. She's lived here for about a year, but she's come on a few different days out with us. And at Christmas, we did a big campaign where we were showing all the kind of Christmas themed food you could get in Bristol. And that was really good because a lot of her followers are French. And I think that historically, when she was first arrived in Bristol, she wasn't all that aware of what Bristol food was, what English food could be. So it's been really nice to kind of introduce her to lots of what the local produce is, but also to see her sharing that in her own way. Underneath, we have With Husband in Tow, or who are some international travel and food bloggers, and they kind of met my manager at a kind of a FoodTreX event actually, and then came over. Hadn't ever really been out and explored the Bristol food scene before, but were blown away by the variety on offer, the enthusiasm of all of our producers and restaurants, and the amount of content they have produced has been phenomenal. So they've done a podcast, they've done so many social media posts, they've done 3 different blog posts. And I think there's an idea sometimes that working with bloggers doesn't necessarily have that return. But I would say as long as you are talking to people about what it is you want to achieve and what you expect them to do, and giving them a lot more kind of goals and expectation, then, and also know how to measure, then I think we've seen a lot of success out of it really. But I would also say, like with everything, don't work with too many people. Kind of select a few people, get some recommendations, and then see how you go. But it does work best, we found, with a particular campaign around either a time of year or a type of food or an area. So just have a little ponder about that. So as well as the social media side, they've also produced some great blogs here. We've got a Dutch blog here about the Bristol beer scene, which went down really well. And it's all been very good, not only just for the promotion of different aspects of the city that we wouldn't necessarily know how to promote it as well as a local person in that country would, but also it's getting our links to our website out into a new place that we wouldn't normally. So these people who have large followings in India or in the Netherlands or in Spain, we could do a national campaign there, but that's not going to attract the same people who are reading that travel blog or that food blog, because these people are already incredibly keen on traveling to a destination for food. So it would make sense that you would want to work with these people and really get across what it is you want to say about your destination. And I would also say that rather than just kind of putting the word out there, like with everything I've talked so far, make sure you are also then kind of returning the favor by promoting it, tagging them in, mentioning who they've talked about in their blogs, and really just sharing the love as much as you can. So you can see this Instagram takeover from Plant-Based Bristol. I also do a Facebook gallery of any of our Instagram takeovers, so that it not only promotes the fact that we have these takeovers, but just gives another chance for our audience to see them. Ideally, if they've got a Facebook page, I can also promote it there. And coming up towards the end now, partner marketing is another aspect of our strategy that has been really useful. I mentioned that we have we are a membership organisation at Visit Bristol, so we have about just under 500 members, and they're a mixture of hotels, attractions, food and drink businesses, events companies, anyone who kind of contributes to the city and the hospitality and tourism sector really. And historically, it's been very much that we promote what they do. We talk about all these different things you can do around Bristol, but really on a lot of their websites and a lot of their social media, they would be kind of sending traffic back our way. And it wasn't something that we thought to ask about until recently. But actually, quite a few of our, this is an example from a city gallery, there are restaurants who also do this, but I couldn't find an example in time, is trying to ask more of the people you work with and that you promote to create some sort of guide page, just talking about Bristol or talking about your city in general. So we would talk to the galleries, talk to the restaurants and say, you know, if you're expecting people to come from outside the city or outside the country, why not just do a little quick page that says, you know, about Bristol or about Cologne and things like that, and just direct them to, you know, your DMO website, some other useful resources. It's, you know, it just makes your site look even more helpful and beneficial to people. It makes you look in the loop, and I think it's been very good for us as well, that we're getting this traffic from other places that we wouldn't have reached normally, because the kind of people who are going to be looking for specifically a tourist board or clicking on a link from Google to a tourist board is different to who are going to be on a gallery website, or who are going to be specifically clicking through on a restaurant website. Or you'll have some overlap there, but it definitely, the more places you are and the different types of audiences having a different sort of interaction on the internet, the better, in my opinion. So I'm going to end on some useful resources, and this is just what's been helping us so far to build out our social strategy. So first off, looking through local blogs and hashtags, I mentioned that before. So looking at not only local kind of city hashtags, but other ones that, you know, so I look at Bristol Food, Bristol Life, Bristol Foodie, just to get an idea of what's going on, looking at local travel and food blogs to see what's going on and what people are finding interesting about the city. Any other people who come and visit the city and talk about us, what have they focused in on? They might probably just focus in on the main bits sometimes, but now and again they'll mention a neighborhood or a cafe or a bar or an attraction that we didn't necessarily know that people were visiting in that sort of way. BuzzSumo we've also found very interesting. That's a good way of seeing where your content is being shared and how it's being received. That is a paid tool, but I think if you are putting a lot of content out on there and you want to have an understanding of where it is being shared, that is quite useful. But obviously you can also see it to a degree in Google Analytics. Answer the Public is one that I've used sometimes, where it shows you the type of queries people are typing into search engines. So say if you put Bristol and then put it into Answer the Public, it will show you all the different questions people have been typing in, or the most popular ones, into Google. And it's very useful to then see how you're shaping your content around that. So if you typed in, say, Bristol food, and then saw if people said, what is Bristol food? What is the most popular Bristol food? Where can I find traditional Bristol food? It gives you an idea of where the gaps are in your own content, because it can be very difficult if you live in a place to see it from an outside perspective. So I'd recommend giving that one a go. Quora is very similar in the fact that it's a forum for people to ask questions. So look at your destination or the topic you specialize in on there, and just see the kind of the topics that come up most frequently. Also the answers people are giving, because that will give you a good indication of how well marketed your destination is. Are people giving correct information, or is it because they can't find better information elsewhere? And again, that will help inform what you're putting out, not only on your website, but across social media. We've been putting out a lot more information about public transport, maps, transport issues in general, because we realized how many people were accessing those pages of the website, but also asking a lot of questions in the forums as well. And finally, Brand24 is one that we've been using quite recently, and that was to monitor hashtags. We don't do it all year round. We tend to do it around campaigns. So our upcoming summer campaign, which is Summer in Bristol, we'll be following it for that. And also our Christmas campaign, which is Merry Bristmas. And that's just to give us an idea, especially because we do a lot of influencer marketing around those two campaigns. You can see who is using the hashtag the most. You can get a big kind of collection of all the tweets and Instagram posts and Facebook posts using it. You can see blogs. So that has been really useful, rather than trawling through every single platform and to try and find out everything, to see who the leaders are, who's got the most influence, who's used it the most. We have talked about giving out prizes and things for certain members or influencers who have, used our hashtag the most and really promoted it. So if you, again, are really dedicated to a certain hashtag, I would say that is very useful, because it's very difficult to monitor hashtags over a long period of time otherwise. So my final points would be to say, try a variety of formats. So not just on your website in the way that you display information, but I would say whether you're on Facebook, to not only just images and videos are very successful, but we do a mixture of sharing blogs, we will ask questions, we will do polls, and the same across all the different platforms. And like I also mentioned, try out a few new platforms. You don't have to create a whole new kind of channel on there and spend lots of time, say, on Pinterest. You could just experiment with a few pins, see how much time it takes. But generally, I would say look at where your traffic is already coming from and then create your presence around that, rather than just try to create an audience out of nothing. Involve local experts. So whether that is the Instagram takeovers I mentioned, writing blogs, inviting them along to events, anything you can do really to get that authentic local voice into your social media and content is priceless. Keep on top of trends and national days, so the National Afternoon Tea Day or whatever it is, but also just what people are talking about in your destination, whether it's locals or visitors. Try to keep on top of hashtags, what people are blogging about, just so that you don't seem behind the times of what is actually relevant to visitors in your city. Use hashtags wisely. I would tend to try and only use one, if using them at all, really, on Twitter and Facebook, just because you don't want to detract from people clicking on your links or on the other bits that you want them to. So I would say unless it's relevant, I tend to avoid them. And then on Instagram, I'd put the main hashtag Visit Bristol, but then maybe put a few dots and then put all the other ones that are related. So Bristol food, roast dinner, pizza, whatever is related to the picture, really. But I would say that's the only place that I would really go to town on hashtags. And the final one, and most important in my opinion, is just build relationships. So whether that is with your partner organizations, with influencers, with local people, and kind of local news organizations, I would say the more you work with other people and don't try just to promote your own content, the more successful you'll be, the more clued in you'll be about what's going on, and the more people will want to promote you and want to help. And that's one of the biggest changes that we've seen, is by promoting other people and doing everything we can to kind of take their advice and help give them their own kind of spotlight on our channels. We've seen more than what we've put out come back to us. So yeah, that's everything from me. I love chatting to people on Twitter, so please come and say hello to me on there. I was an early adopter, so I've got my name on there. And yeah, you can email me at Destination Bristol as well.
Wow, Sinead, have you ever thought about selling your Twitter handle?
I'm not sure I have that much appeal to people really. I've not met another Sinead yet, so if I meet one, then I'll try
You're
and put a
the
price to it.
Sinead on Twitter. I mean, you could sell that for what, £100,000 maybe?
Oh well, if you know anyone, then I'm more than happy to negotiate.
Fantastic. All right. Well, as people are thinking about their questions that they'd like to ask you, I've thought of a few questions. First of all, it was great, really interesting. Definitely a different take on social media, which is exactly, I think, what everyone wanted to hear about.
Excellent.
So managing social media takes a lot of time. What tools do you use to manage all your posts and relationships? I know you had the page on tools with BuzzSumo and so on, but specifically with posts or things that are coming in that you need to respond to, which of those tools do you use for that?
So at the moment for scheduling, I use Buffer just because it's really nice and simple. We've used Hootsuite in the past, but on a personal level, I find it a bit too busy because you've got the other columns where you can monitor hashtags and see responses as they come in.
Yeah.
And I'd much prefer to just go in, do my scheduling for the week, and with Buffer, which is quite nice, on the paid version, you can see a calendar view, so you can see everything you've got lined up for that week, and you can kind of drag and drop things, and it's just quite simple and it's easy to train people. And then monitoring replies, I tend to I have notifications on my phone anyway, and on my computer, but I tend to keep open Twitter especially. Facebook I tend to just kind of drop in throughout the day, but I think it depends on how active your accounts are, really. I think that that management tools like Hootsuite are great if you want to monitor it throughout the day and respond as things come in, but you can get kind of carried away with that, and that can eat into an entire day. And if you're quite busy with other bits of your job, I think the healthiest way is to kind of say, right, well, maybe mid-morning I'll check in on our Facebook notifications. And that's another thing I didn't mention actually, is that interacting with your comments and things like that is really important, and retweeting useful kind of posts that you get back from people, that's always good as well. But
Sure.
I just tend to do it in the app rather than drive myself crazy with Hootsuite and things. But it's a very personal thing. It's very useful if you want to monitor it in one place to do Hootsuite, but it's not for me. It's too busy.
Understood. All right. So Bristol's reputation for food and drink has grown in recent years. Do you have any metrics on how Bristol's rank has grown as a food lover city in the UK?
Okay. I would have to speak to my big boss, Catherine, about kind of precise metrics around that. I know that just from a kind of internal side of it, that the amount of, say, press visits, inquiries that we've had has more than doubled in terms of food visits in the last year. We're getting more and more food and drink publications and bloggers contacting us than we ever have before. And also the membership for Visit Bristol, when I joined, it has tripled the food and drink membership in that time. And I do think a lot of that has had to do with the fact that we have promoted that side of the city a lot more and shown that we have got an active interest in it and that we're proud of it. Whereas I think before that, people saw us more as talking about the kind of the heritage and the history and the hotels, and so they didn't even think to join us as an organization or to approach us about doing a blog or anything like that.
Sure. You talked about influencers. Can you give an example of one you worked with for a specific campaign? What was involved and what were the results?
Okay. I would say, well, the one that's freshest in my mind, just because it's been so successful, was that with Husband in Tow that I mentioned before. So
Yes.
I had a few screenshots from them, and they met my manager Catherine at a FoodTreX event, and we brought them over because they've got that food and travel audience, and we told them we kind of basically want to promote the experience side of Bristol's food and drink. We want to showcase the diverse offering that we've got here, but also more than anything, we want to kind of hear what you think. I think that we've been more and more conscious of asking people when they visit to tell us what they think we're good at and what we're not so good at. And then we can hopefully feed that back across the city and make improvements where are needed, or really shout about the things that people like. And we took them wine tasting, we took them to breweries, we took them to different restaurants, and we took them around new districts of the city on kind of little kind of food tour and things. And it was just so good to see that they were blown away by what we had to offer. And off the back of that, they created a podcast on the history of cider. They created a blog that was about tasting craft beer in Bristol, just based on a few of the brewery visits we'd kind of shown them. They created one about gin in Bristol because we'd been to a couple of gin distilleries in the city. And they did this monster food guide to the city. But also they've been making sure to tag us in any social media posts they've been doing. And they've just generally been very good at communicating with us. And I think that's a very important thing as well, is to, if you've got that good communication from the start with whoever it is you're working with in influencer marketing, then I think you can get so much more out of it. You can kind of explain as you go. We could send a few corrections across if there were, there was the odd spelling mistake or factual error that we could say, oh, actually, can you just change that? And can you just kind of swap this one out? But overall, we do have a record of kind of what is produced. We kind of set out some clear guidelines when we work with people and say, this is the aim of the visit. Here is what we want you to produce. So whether it is, they overproduce. We ask them, I think, for like one guide and then however many social media posts, and then they produce this podcast and several guides, which I think speaks for itself, and actually how excited they were by the offering and they wanted to break it out into all these different sectors. So yeah, but we do always monitor and then kind of feedback as a team about the things we thought were good about that visit, what we got out of it, and how we can best promote it. So I'll put it out on social media and in other blogs. We can then use it in press releases, everything like that.
Okay, great. Yeah, they are a very good group of influencers, or team of influencers, I should say.
Yeah,
What is a takeover? Like you mentioned the Instagram takeover, and how does it work?
So the Instagram takeover is where we invite somebody to manage our Instagram account for the weekend. It's usually from Friday evening until Sunday night. So we've got one starting any minute now, who is a local photographer. And as I mentioned, it can be anyone. We started off by doing people who were big Instagram influencers in and around Bristol, but now we've tried to make it as broad as possible. So the other week we had someone who wanted to do an Instagram takeover about quiet places in Bristol to have like a nice relaxed time. We've had people who wanted to find out nature in Bristol, so they basically were doing all these live videos of them going into the woods and wild swimming, and trying to do bird spotting. We've had people who are graffiti artists at our local street art festival, kind of showing us all the different street art. We've had like I say, we've had a lot of the food people. So we've had that vegan takeover, which was really well received. And I think it was a really good way for us to kind of test that sort of content, because obviously veganism is, becoming a really kind of hot trend. And, well, not even trend, it's a lot more people are moving to even a part-time plant-based diet. But to know that we could do that takeover for a full weekend and really promote it, and seeing people who who aren't vegan but who are positively commenting and sharing and everything like that. So yeah, basically we invite for them to, we give them the login details, so it's very much a trust thing, and they have the password to the account. But in 2.5 years of doing them, we've never had any problems. We've always made sure that the people we've given that control to are either known to us or are recommended by people we trust, so it's never just a complete stranger. And we always check on their Instagram accounts to make sure that they do understand the platform and that they know how it works, because we can't really handhold when they're doing the takeover. The point is that it's meant to be their experience of Bristol in their style. So yeah, basically for those 2.5 days, they just have full reign of the account. The only guidelines I give them is to use the hashtag, to tag in anyone they mention, and to introduce themselves at the start of every post, just so that anyone who's joining halfway through the weekend knows that it's a takeover.
Right.
But all of them have said they've seen huge amounts of increases in followers. They get lots of comments underneath, and I think a lot of them, it's the biggest account they've ever managed, and so it's a really lovely thing for them to have that huge audience for a couple of days. And I quite like on a Monday morning coming in and you see in your inbox on Instagram all the different comments that people have had, like to stories or just direct messages, and they've replied to everyone. And I don't tell them to. I never say that you've got to reply to messages, but all of them love doing it. And it's just a really nice thing, because a lot of it will be things like, where would you, the general tourist board, questions like, where can I get this bus? And, who's really good for a coffee? And these Instagram takeover people, they're just really keen locals a lot of the time, will respond to all that, even though they don't need to. So yeah, I'd really recommend it as a way to get a whole different perspective on the city and kind of build some new relationships in the process.
Sure, I like that. Okay, last question before we wrap up. Bristol now has a food and beverage tourism strategy. How much has your social media strategy changed because of your food and beverage tourism strategy?
That has been massively helpful to us, because I think before we were kind of confident as locals that what we had to offer was good, but knowing how to, kind of what our strengths were, what our weaknesses were, and really what the worldwide trends were, was just so helpful to us. And understanding that kind of experience side has been really important to us as well. So getting more, building in more experiences and excursions, mentioning those more on social media, being able to talk to our members that we do have a strategy for food tourism, and the fact that we've been able to kind of host events about this and talk to people about all the different opportunities that are open to them, I think is getting a lot of our members, and even wider than that, just general food and drink organisations in Bristol, thinking a bit more internationally. We're not, I think we're in the top 10 big cities in the UK, but we're not top 5. And I think historically Bristol hasn't seen itself as a tourism city, especially not for food and drink. And I think that the more that our producers and suppliers can think about that, and think about, even if they maybe can't host a group of people visiting for the day, how they can maybe team up with other organizations, or how they can make the most of that opportunity in other ways. And so yeah, I think that it's definitely from the bottom up influenced everything, but from the social media side, we've been pushing a lot more of the experience side, and we're also building out more things like the traditional food and where to eat traditional British food, and then we're going to put that out on social media and try and get ideas from people, but just thinking a little bit more about what people are traveling here for, what people would travel here for, has been super useful.
Well, I've got a great tip for you on a place for a Sunday roast.
Do you? Go on.
It's not right in Bristol, but I'll share it with you separately.
Excellent. Always want a good roast tip.
Yeah, lovely. Well, I think we should wrap it up for now, but Shanette, thank you very much. That was fantastic. Really a different spin on social media, really interesting, really valuable, and we really appreciate your time. You have proven once again that you really know your stuff, so thank you for offering to share it with our audience. And right, so for everybody who is going to be attending the next session, it will be starting in about 15 minutes. Remember to refer to the Excel spreadsheet where a different URL will be there, and because we're using different URLs for different recordings today. And so, Shanette, thank you again for your time, and we'll be in touch soon.